Look at the 2003 NBA Draft. It is without a doubt the greatest collection of talent that the league has ever seen. Chris, Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. 27 combined championships. But sitting right there at number 2 was a mistake so historically bad, it literally broke a human being. Everyone talks about the Detroit Pistons passing on 3 Hall of Famers, but nobody talks about the real reason why Joe Dumars pulled the trigger on a kid he barely scouted, or the secret promise that got broken on draft night. And to understand the biggest bust in NBA history, we have to go back to a trade that happened 6 years before Darko Milicic even knew what the NBA was. Now, before we get to draft night, you have to understand how the Pistons got to number 2 pick in the first place, because Detroit, they were a lottery team. They were a 50-win juggernaut that had just gone to the Eastern Conference Finals. Back in 1997, the Pistons traded for an aging power forward, Otis Thorpe, to the Vancouver Grizzlies for a conditional first-round pick. And the Grizzlies, who was an absolute disaster of a franchise at the time, kept protecting the pick year after year. In 2000, they had a chance to give it to Detroit and be done with it. But instead, they kept it to draft Stromile Swift. Yeah, I said it. Stromile Swift. If the Grizzlies would have just given up the pick in 2000, they would have had the number 2 pick in 2003. Imagine Carmelo Anthony or Dwayne Wade alongside Paul Gasol in Memphis. But instead, the bill came due in 2003. The Pistons, they hit the jackpot. They were championship contenders, suddenly handed the keys to a generational draft. But having the pick is one thing. Not screwing it up, that's a whole nother ballgame. In Detroit, they were about to make a decision based on almost zero evidence, driven by pure front office ego. But before they made the worst pick in history, they actually made a promise to someone else. And that someone, he's still salty about it to this day. If you ask Carmelo Anthony, was he supposed to be a Detroit Piston? Melo had just put together one of the greatest freshman seasons in college basketball history, leading the Syracuse Orangemen to a national title. He was NBA ready. He was a certified bucket, and the Pistons coach Larry Brown wanted him. Brown, he told the front office he either wants Carmelo Anthony or Chris Bosh. In fact, according to Melo, the Pistons explicitly told him they were taking him at number 2. So what happened? Enter the international hype machine. In 2003, the NBA was obsessed with finding the next Dirk Nowitzki. European big men could shoot threes and handle the ball. They were the ultimate cheat code. And the scouts, they start whispering about this 18-year-old kid from Serbia named Darko Milicic. The Pistons GM, Joe Dumars, he flew to Europe. He watched Darko work out in an empty gym. No defenders, no actual game tape against NBA-type talent. Just an 18-year-old kid doing drills. Based on that, a Piston scout literally compared Darko Milicic to Wilt Chamberlain. I said it, Wilt Chamberlain. Dumars, he got aired. He thought that the veteran culture could actually mold this young, mysterious prospect into gold. He ignored the sure thing in Carmelo Anthony. He also ignored Dwayne Wade. He bet the franchise on a workout in an empty gym. But here's the darker part of this story. The part that people forget when they call Darko a bust. Darko Milicic, he never even wanted this. While LeBron and Melo are playing on national TV during high school, Darko, he was growing up in a war zone. He survived NATO bombings by hiding in the basement. He once watched a news broadcaster mistakenly report that his father was killed in action. He didn't play basketball because he loved it. He played because he was tall, and people in his village told him it was the only way. Poverty. When the American media asked Darko who his idol was, he said Kevin Garnett. Why? Because he said he figured that's what an NBA prospect is supposed to say. He has barely even seen Kevin Garnett play. Darko, he was a kid playing a role, thrust into a locker room full of grown men chasing championships. And Larry Brown, he had zero interest in developing Darko. And Darko, he played 96 games for Detroit. He scored 152 points. He averaged less than 6 minutes a game. The Pistons, they won the 04 championship, making Darko the youngest player to ever win a ring. But he contributed absolutely nothing. In the isolation, it broke him. He started showing up to practice drunk. He couldn't sleep. He wouldn't even go home to his apartment, and he punched the walls in his apartment until his knuckles bled. This man literally broke his hand punching a wall. Detroit, they ruined his confidence, but the rest of the league, they wasn't done with him yet, because the NBA general managers, they are obsessed with fixing broken toys. And Darko was about to take $52 million from teams that refused to admit that the man was done. Detroit, they finally dumped him to the Orlando Magic. Then Memphis threw a 3-year, $21 million contract at this man. Why? Because front offices have massive egos. Every GM, they thought, man, Detroit don't know how to use him, but I can fix him. Memphis, it was his breaking point. His wife called it his crisis period. He hated basketball. He hated expectations. During a game against the Houston Rockets, this man got so frustrated, he literally ripped his jersey off in the middle of the court. After an international game with Serbia, he went on a profanity-laced rant, threatening referees that almost got him fined $14 grand from FIBA. This man was drowning. He went to the Knicks, then the Timberwolves, gave him another $20 million. Finally, in 2012, he signed with the Boston Celtics. He played one game for Boston, 5 minutes, 1 rebound, 2 turnovers. The next day, he walked into then head coach Doc Rivers' office. Rivers, he thought they were going to be talking about playing basketball. Instead, Darko looked at him and said, "I'm packed. I'm going home. I'm not playing tonight. I'm not playing ever again. Thank you guys for trying, but I'm out." And just like that, the biggest draft bust in NBA history walked away from the game at age 27 ever. But this isn't a tragedy, because when basketball ended, Darko finally found the one thing that the NBA couldn't give him: peace. Today, Darko lives in Serbia. He took his $52 million in career earnings and bought 152 acres of farmland. He grows apples and exports them to Dubai and Russia. He's obsessed with agriculture. When a storm threatens his crops, he's out there working in the mud with his hands. He said walking through his orchard was the first time in life he felt a sense of pride. He doesn't watch the NBA. During an interview in 2017, this man didn't even know the NBA Finals was happening. He tried kickboxing for one fight, broke the scale at weigh-in because he was over 300 pounds. Got his ass kicked and went right back to the farm. Darko Milicic is remembered as the guy who was drafted before Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, and Chris Bosh. He's remembered as a punchline. But to him, the guy who played in the NBA, he's dead. He survived the hype machine, he took his money, and bought his freedom. If Detroit takes Carmelo Anthony at number 2, do they win multiple rings? Or does Larry Brown bench him and ruin the chemistry? Let's get toxic in these comments right now. Tell me exactly how many rings does Melo win in Detroit? If you want more untold NBA stories that the league tries to bury, hit that subscribe button and smash that like. And I'll see you on the next one. Holla at your boy. Peace. I'm out.